This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, there's a laptop. Okay. Stuart or Don, can anyone hear us? Just for confirmation.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we'll call to order the Monterey Select Board at 9:01 on September 5th, and we have all three members present here in Town Hall. The first item of business is the town administrator position topic, which was postponed from last week when the meeting adjourned abruptly.
Start.
Sure.
Okay. Well, first I want to reach out to Don and say, I was gonna say, welcome, glad to see you're up and about. I don't know if it's true, but I heard you're at the gym the next day, and glad to see you're in good health, so. I read your statement, and it's apparent you have put a lot of thought into your written comments. Many people have sent emails to the select board members expressing their opinions. For the most part, they've been very civil. The town appreciates the debate as we work towards determining the best solution for the town administrator position. My objective is to start the process and not define the outcome today until we have completed the process. Another objective is to have complete transparency in the process. At the August 15th select board meeting, the board voted 3-0 to notify the TA we would not be renewing the contract based on town council's advice. To those, please read the August 15 minutes on the website for the facts to date. I am speaking for myself and not the board. To me, there needs to be more clarity on how we see the TA position through the job description, the employee manual, and the organizational chart. It is not unusual to pause when an employment contract expires, especially one as important as the TA, and have another contract written. As Justin said 3 weeks ago, this is the first time we've had a TA, and we should review the job description. Susan made similar comments. I am not interested in digging up the past, and I'll make every attempt to keep us from going there. I know there's been a lot of reports dating back to 2015, and to be honest, I haven't read them. But I can if we need to go there. I can look at the recommendations, but ultimately the goal is not to live in the past, but to better prepare the town for the future. The town administrator position is the most important position in the town. It's the face of the select board, and almost everything goes through the TA. Many towns, TA job descriptions describe the TA as both the chief operating officer and chief financial officer. So it's important we get it right. Don, in your document, you talked about the department head's contract, DPW, police, and library. Before speaking about those contracts, I want to acknowledge Jim, Brian, and Mark. Before speaking about those contracts, I want to acknowledge Jim, Brian, Mark, and as well as Sean, who do a fantastic job, and I'm thankful they and those who work for them as part of our town. But comparing the way we do the TA contract and department head is very different because the positions are so different. In closing, I hope everyone looks at this as an opportunity. The good news is we have several months to figure out the steps in this process.
Nikki, Curtis.
I want to thank Frank for making it very clear as to what it is. And this is a process. It has to be, this is a new job. When the job description was written, it was written on a blank slate. We did not know. I'm sure at this point, Melissa can say, gosh, I do this, I don't do that. And this really needs to be in my job description. She's an important part of helping that be brought up to date, and it does need to be reviewed. we review Mark's regularly and make changes to it. The contract needs to be rewritten, it's just simple as that. And also, what you did not mention was the evaluation, which is an important part. Not only are you dealing with, the evaluation has to deal with the job description and the contract. You have to evaluate on those. There should be some goals every year, where you want to go, where you want to grow, new jobs that might be thrown in. So this is all just part of a process, and everybody getting excited at this point and thinking you are firing Melissa is so untrue and unfair to the select board, and most importantly, it's unfair to the town. This has to be a good review, what's a new position, and it has to be, there are corrections to be made.
Ellen Coburn.
Thank you for that introduction and that response to the comments, Frank, I appreciate that. Even thank you for being on the select board, because it's so hard in this town to get people with real background and knowledge and smarts, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
No one said that Melissa's being fired, Mickey, that's a misrepresentation totally. And no one jumped to any conclusions in responding to the situation now, I want to say that. What happened was, there was a proposal made by you
Mhm.
at last week's meeting, which
Right.
unfortunately, that meeting had to be stopped, unfortunately. But unless I heard it wrong, and I think I did not, that proposal was not just to reevaluate the contract and do all the good things that you just talked about, which I totally think is smart and logical. That proposal specifically stated posting the job, interviewing other candidates, and if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong. You said this is a common practice in, was it corporate world or business or something, what did you say?
Probably business. I don't know
Yeah, yeah.
specifically.
I have to listen to the, I like to get the words exactly right, I'm a very picky person about words. But anyway, that was what I heard, and that you said it's a common practice, and that it was a good idea to see if you could get someone better, or to see who's out there who might apply. There's some words to that effect.
Okay.
That is what we were responding to, because as much as I agree with what you're talking about when you're talking about the contract and the job description, and maybe even rewriting the contract, whatever, that all makes sense to me and many of her supporters, I believe, many of Melissa's supporters. What didn't make sense to me, especially the timing, and what I see personally, and I think many others see as an unfair choice at this time, was the posting part and the interviewing part and the timing for that. That I wanted to clarify.
Okay, there's a couple of points I wanted to make. I said it's the beginning of the process, and I was speaking for myself. I have not talked to the other select board, so I don't know. So, I talked to Melissa. I told Melissa I'd be very transparent. It doesn't mean it will necessarily happen. It's transparency. I don't want to go back to the past. A lot of people say there wasn't transparency before. I'm just putting on the table, and I wanted to start it now, because we have several months to do. We can have the debate, we can have the town input, and make it very clear,
To start what, I'm sorry?
Start the
what?
process.
The process,
Okay, and I said that in the last week. This is the beginning of the process. It doesn't define the process. Okay. I know define is different than starting. And so I'm open to start it. I don't have enough information at this point to make a decision. Then, I can go through the manual, the job description, and I see mistakes. And that was in the manufacturing world. I knew that. I knew that a labor lawyer would tear me apart if there wasn't something in the job description and you're trying to tell someone to go do it.
Right.
Okay, so
That makes
that's,
sense.
okay.
Do you understand what?
I understand what your part, yeah.
And that the specific words, which as I said, I listened very carefully, specific words, placed in the context of that proposal last week at the select board, that was what, for me personally, was very exciting.
Your email was fine, people forwarded it to me, I'm, that's fine. The debate's
Oh, good.
there, and make it transparent,
Well, I think it's terrific that we have a kind of town government where we can come here and we can speak directly to you. It's a gift.
Mhm.
And so I'm a bit upset at comments that some people have made recently that it's inappropriate for us to be talking about this now and that it's
I don't
circulating the
spend a
wagons
lot
or
of
something
time
like
on
that, you know.
that.
I feel this is a
That's
terrific way for us to air our feelings.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Ellen, part of the difficulty was that because the meeting got cut short last week, the discussion of the topic got cut short, and I had just asked Frank, to talk about what a timeline he might propose for reviewing the job description, reviewing the contract, renegotiating, or opening up the position, as you mentioned, was discussed. And we didn't get to have that discussion. I think it left a lot of unanswered questions in the air, and there were some assumptions that were made, when we're really just beginning. So one thing that people may not know is that we actually did review the job description, or begin a process of reviewing the job description last year. Susan was on the board, Frank was not. I think one place to start is we could begin with that. We could discuss with Sophia whether we started annual evaluations for all town employees just this year. It may be appropriate to do an evaluation in conjunction with the job description and contract review process, even if it doesn't keep with the annual schedule. And that's something that I can ask Sophia to make a recommendation on, but I think it certainly, like you've said, Frank, the time is now and not waiting till the last minute to begin the process, and a good place to start is the job description. I think the contract is for down the road, but definitely the job description, and discuss with Sophia whether a review is appropriate at this time.
I definitely wanna put on the table that given that last year was the first time the town has ever had a consistent process for employee reviews, and that was the TA's first review in, I guess at that time, about 70 years of service. I think it's really important that she receive an additional review, whether it's on the original timeline or modified timeline, because I think that's the only fair thing to any employee, that we have a chance to look at what change, you had some strengths, we described some things we wanted you to work on for professional development, what progress has been made, where are we now? What effort have you consistently shown towards trying to, I'll call it up your game, but that's perhaps not the best choice of words, but to work on the areas that were identified as maybe needing to improve. Because I think every employee deserves that type of consideration. So whether we do it in December or we move it up, I still think it needs to happen, and it's fair. It's part of the process.
I think we start with the job description.
Yeah, we have
And
to have that.
whether, and then, Melissa needs to look at it and say, do you understand what we're trying to say?
Yeah, and we have, like I said, we have begun that
But
process, and
I have notes at home, because to be honest, I don't want to get into the weeds of it, because I think we should have a separate meeting, and I'd be much more prepared for it.
about,
The job description.
Yeah.
Okay, this is why I think this should change. This is not really happening, take it out or whatever. So, my thought is we have in the select board meeting, we come and we do our edit changes, and we talk about what we're looking for, and we get the document 99%. And then we, okay, let's talk about where we go from there next.
And I also think part of that should include looking at all the different hats that position is currently covering. And asking if they're in the right place. I suspect the answer for most of them is yes,
Yeah.
but I still think, since it's an opportunity of reviewing that we should include that part of the review. Which other hats is this person wearing? Should they be wearing all those hats? And how do we specify that? Is it part of the TA contract? Do we do it as we do now in a bunch of different job descriptions and say the same person is filling those posts? I don't have an answer, I'm just raising the question.
I have a good sense, which is that when we did a contract recently with a department head, Donna was concerned about having separate pay distributed throughout and positions. It should, I think
All
it's
be
best if
combined.
everything, if one person's job is in one job description
Okay.
and all their compensation is in one compensation area, and that's a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
I think there are exceptions to that, like when we have Lori as a select board secretary, maybe she fills the office assistant role as well, but if it's 90% in one job description, 5% in two other job descriptions, it's probably best to have. My sense is that best to be all in one place.
I'm not gonna disagree with you, I think I agree with you, but in that case, we need to modify things so that they reflect what we're actually doing,
Okay.
which is part of the purpose of the review, so.
Eileen,
Yeah, thank you so much for your willingness to address this topic, because one thing is clear, the world has changed, just by the nature of COVID and the way that we need to do things. So to reopen this and to understand what's best for the government in Monterey is really important. My question is, I've served on probably 7, 8 committees over the time, and I'm wondering how you're gonna seek input from the different committees for some of the new job descriptions. I can speak more specifically from finance, about certain things that we would like to see in the job description that we would expect, to receive in terms of reports, analytical, certain things that we think are really the purview of the town administrator, that we're willing to work on and train on and all those, but how would you like us to, give those to you, or how will you seek input from the committees that think there's a role that needs to change?
so that's a good point, Eileen. I'm looking at the current job description, actually the version that was marked up the last time we reviewed it. And there are general statements about the town administrator coordinating amongst departments and committees, but actually the finance committee is mentioned a few times specifically related to the budget process and financial policies. So would certainly make sense for the finance committee to have input, but also we're gonna be doing this always in open meeting. We put the documents online when we post the minutes, which we've been pretty good about approving the minutes in a week or two. So everyone should have access to them and make input as they see fit. I think, but yeah, the finance committee is mentioned specifically in here, so. I think probably the starting place is, next week we have a couple meetings, is doing the job description. We have a couple meetings at the beginning of next week, one being the school meeting, which might really eat up all the time.
I tell you, I walked away with more questions than answers than last Monday's meeting.
I felt that way every time I had an interaction with them.
So, but also, did you get, and I couldn't tell because he BCC'd everyone, did you get Jake's email with updates after post that meeting? Did you?
No.
I spent time on
Okay.
their website, I
Did you?
couldn't find stuff that we talked about.
Well, I'll have to
Maybe you just
forward
sent
that. It was yesterday or something.
And the finance committee and the other finance committees, Sandusfield and Egremont, requested a technical briefing from the school board to understand the formulas and the base years and how those corridors are set, because that seems to be a driving thing, and we have not heard back, so maybe we should.
Sorry, I diverted the topic. We got that,
Sorry,
we have this
I
later on the
reacted to it.
agenda, but
And what your point is that if we do the school board and we have Lucy and Jake in here, we're not gonna have time.
to do this. So the question
Not
is,
to give it proper consideration.
I think, I agree with them, but that is a huge vote coming up in October. We need to get information to the residents, and we need to leave as much time, because I tell you, the questions, I've already started a list of questions.
so the question being, do we want to, I'm thinking moving forward in the town administrator position review process, do we want to schedule another meeting for next week, or do we wanna put it off for 2 weeks?
I don't, without my feeling is, I have no problem doing 2 meetings next week.
I could go either way.
I mean,
If you wanna-
If we started, we don't have to feel rushed, we can say, look, we got difference of opinion, go on and think about it, come back and we'll do it, so you know, I'm willing to commit to the time to doing it like we should.
Calendar. First. The meeting, the.
We
eight-
have,
The 8 Towns thing is on normal board meeting next week, right?
Right, but then there is an energy meeting the 14th with the planning.
Okay,
So
so
I wanna go to that.
Monday.
I talked to Peter about going to that, but he's out of town.
So, sorry, I know we're doing scheduling, which is boring, but let's
It's a
keep
necessary.
order, please. What about Monday, the 11th, and Wednesday, the 13th at 6? Or we can always just figure this out later.
No, let's do
No,
it
let's
now.
just get it done. I'm okay with either one. I think I'd
Monday.
probably prefer the 13th, but I'm open to.
But, I prefer the 11th.
Of course. Okay.
Do the 11th?
Let's do the 11th.
What do you wanna do?
I was thinking keeping with 6, but
Okay, all right, 6.
That gives me a full day, so I can.
That gives me something to work on what I need to do. My homework.
Okay.
so what we will shoot for next week is track changes to the job description. I mean, at least a start. It's not like we're gonna prove it, but I already did a review last year. We never ended up approving any of the changes. But
And I think we now also have on the table making explicit the other jobs that are rolled in there, which I don't think is currently the case. So that would be a change and we have to consider how to do it. I mean, are we just tacking these on? Are we, I mean, cause technically we're talking administrative assistant.
Yeah.
Uh,
yeah, no, I think anything,
CBA secretary, and there's a few.
anything that, Melissa, anything that you've been doing
The other
in the
hats
past
all
3
roll
years.
into the one place.
So we need input on that.
And cause I mean, if we just stack them on, it gets kind of crazy. I mean, we probably need to have them in there, but abbreviate them somehow. I'm just not, I mean, maybe the best person to ask for how to do that is Sophia.
Are you moving,
Yeah, Ellen,
are you saying now that you are moving on to discuss the rest of this topic next week and that you're moving on to the next agenda item?
Well,
Yes.
we've agreed that we'll discuss the job description next Monday. We're not gonna do it at the regular select board meeting because we have the educational committee coming in
after we have the retirement
Okay.
coming in at 6, so we have a very busy schedule. It could, last time the school board was here, I forget how long they stayed, but it pretty much ate up the whole meeting.
So,
Okay, so can I just, say something else? Okay, thank you for saying that you had no problem with my letter. I really wanted it to be okay. I didn't send it to you. Justin had asked not to receive those letters some time ago, so I didn't send to him. I sent to Susan. I didn't know whether to send to you, but I
It's
didn't want
fine.
to offend you
You know,
if you didn't want another email, so.
I
I'm
rather.
glad you saw it, and I'm glad you're okay with it. Thank you. But now, this is what I want to say. First of all, Chris and Jenny Andrews couldn't make it today and wanted very much to come, and I wanted to make sure you knew that. They asked if the time could be changed, obviously, but he's the clerk, and so I thought it was important you knew that he would want to be here with his wife. I can't remember when you moved to town. I know you live across from a friend of mine, but I can't remember when.
2016, we bought the house.
2016.
My wife has been here since.
And so you were full-time here at that time?
No, my wife was here full-time from about 2018, and I was full-time about 2020. I
Oh,
retired in
2020.
2020. I
Okay.
retired, so.
So I'm gonna be 82 in a few weeks, and in a couple of days, I'm gonna be married 61 years. And this is the end of my long life on earth. I hope not right away, but coming. And I love the idea of having a peaceful town and a town where we don't have to go back over stuff from the past.
Right.
But you said you are not familiar with what happened, and you don't want necessarily to go back to what you would if you have to. I hope you don't have to.
People bring it up to me, but I don't tend to spend time on the computer reading these documents.
Oh, okay.
I didn't move up here to, spend enough time behind the computer. I keep my computer in my shop so I don't get addicted to it.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things. you know, I think that we can have a constructive conversation and we can, you know, work through this. But, you know, if it, you know, someone said,
Excuse me,
Then-
I would respectfully request that if you have some time, I would really like to meet and talk with you about why I have the passion I have
okay,
for Melissa specifically as town administrator, and why I would spend my time at this stage of my life getting stressed, hopefully not very stressed,
Please.
about this whole thing.
Mhm.
And why, when I send out my feelings, wondering will anybody respond, people respond with quite a bit of strong feeling themselves.
That's right.
And it has to do with the past, and I don't think that we can ignore it totally. I don't wanna rehash it.
I don't wanna
I don't
rehash
want a new
it, but
scene
my
about
word of caution is there is another group that are passionate about it.
Of course,
So,
and
you
that,
know, you open up that can and then you're spending your whole life talking about the past.
but what I've come to realize is that I'm part of the silent majority, or the more silent majority. The other group that is passionate is quite vocal, we know about that.
Mhm.
But I don't know if you understand the depth and the breadth of the silent majority, of which I consider myself one, even though I'm less silent than others.
Okay.
There is a tremendous amount of support in this town, I believe, for Melissa as town administrator. This is not the time to discuss it, because you have a good idea with discussing the job description and going through the whole process in the way you mentioned. I totally understand. But I want you to know that as long as I'm around and as long as others who come to support Melissa as town administrator are around, and many more that I believe I can gather, you're going to hear from those people in a way that maybe you haven't before.
That's
But I
fine.
would first like to ask if you would be willing to meet with me, so you'd understand my story.
I would be sitting down willing to listen to you.
Thank
You
you.
know, I'm open ears, and one of the criticisms from the people have said they didn't like the past process. So by starting this now, we have time.
Mhm.
And the only way I will listen to both sides.
Mhm.
You
That's
know,
the way it should be.
okay, and I will reach out to you.
I'm available anytime, I'm very retired.
You know, yeah.
Okay, so, Sean, try.
Only question is this sounds like there's a few different contracts in town. Is it gonna be a fair process of all the contracts get reviewed the same way and adjustments made and put back out to
Well,
the public to reapply for their job?
Can I speak to
Yeah,
you? So, I think the select board oversees, I think, 2 contracted employees, the police chief and the town administrator. So obviously they're on different timelines. We just finished what I believe ended up being about a 2.5-year contract with the police chief, or was it 3-year?
Well, it ended up being 2.5 years, because it took us half the 3rd year to
Yeah.
finalize the contract.
So we just finished that up. That's not up for review for, I think, about 2 years. I forget the exact deadline, but it was about a 3-year contract. So there's been some people reaching out saying, why are we doing it the way that we're doing it? I think we are handling each contract as it comes up. Brian went through a rigorous interview process to get the job of police chief. We worked on that contract for a month or 2
Felt like about 6, but yeah.
with our town council and with his police chief counsel, and I think we did a good job on it. I think Brian's been doing a great job as police chief, and whoever is on the board in 2 years, when that is up, has to make that decision. So, they're not all gonna come up at the same time, and they're not all gonna pan out the same way. But I hope that as each contract comes up, there's a thorough review process, to keep things up to date and make sure that the position is being filled as best as it possibly can. I think another thing Frank mentioned is that the town administrator role is different than department heads, because the town administrator is basically the day-to-day select board. We meet once a week for a couple hours, and in between those meetings, the town administrator acts on behalf of the select board. So there's a very, very close relationship there, so it's gonna be treated with a little bit, I don't know the way to put it, but just with that context. As opposed to a department head, which also filled very significant roles, working crazy hours in snowstorms and emergencies, but it's just, they're different positions.
I'm gonna throw one more thing in there, which is, this is essentially the first time we've actually had a full-time town administrator, right? We had somebody that filled a half-time position that didn't last very long. This is our opportunity to decide, like, it wasn't even an open question, is this the perfect way to run the town? This is the time to look back and say, is having a town administrator serving the town, is this the best way to run our operations? Personally, I think the answer is probably yes, but I don't wanna answer that question before I ask it, because I'm data driven. I wanna look at how are things running, is this the best way to run? If it is, then great, let's make sure that the job description includes what's actually being done before we go forward with any other decision. Because, even just combining all the different hats into one contract, and one job description is a significant change, and it recognizes what the person's actually doing. So at the very least, I think that that's an important thing to evaluate, is having a town administrator, is this the best way to manage the town? Even if the answer is yes, asking questions is still important.
Well, and to add on to Susan's point, I mean, even the decision at the time to have a full-time town administrator and no administrative assistant was I'm not gonna say a last minute decision, but initially a part-time town administrator position was advertised. So there was, and it had been recommended by, and Don had mentioned in some of his reports, at least one report recommended a part-time town administrator. Don spoke to some of the benefits of having a full-time town administrator, but if a matter of circumstances resulted in, instead of a full-time administrative assistant, part-time town administrator, does that work? Deserves a review.
Can I speak briefly?
And since we instituted the town administrator position, we've also hired a secretary. We have funding for an office assistant, which we've filled once for some length of time, and we've hired an HR director. So even in just those 3 short years, we've filled, that administrative assistant position in other ways, and things have been kind of fluid. So the whole situation deserves a visit, which we're doing.
Does that make sense, Sean?
I'm not against
Can I
looking
speak
at it.
briefly?
and changing
May I
it.
speak?
Well, Sean's gonna speak first, because we're having a conversation with him, and then you.
Okay, very briefly. First, Frank,
Not
thanks
against
for your
reviewing it.
kind
Hang on,
thought.
Don, Sean's doing a follow-up.
Tell him that tell him again.
He got it now.
Okay.
Not against reviewing and making necessary changes. It's just the timing of it, and you're walking a line of drama and awful mud here.
Just remember the timing of it was at least in part, really initiated by the contractual language in the original contract, which required a 6-month.
She just happened to be on vacation when it hit the
Yeah,
select
but the
board,
6-month,
so-
the 6-month tag was contractually obligated, we had to make a decision by that time. Like, that was on the contract, we just had to respond to it. That's what got the ball
Probably
rolling,
could
just
have
with
been done a
budgeting.
little more tactfully.
Yeah.
And we all would be sitting here.
I think what's caused this is putting it out to re-advertise. I think
Right.
you've
Exactly.
really lowered the morale here with the employees, all thinking that, their jobs aren't secure and are they just gonna be re-advertised as well? So I think the question would be is, are you going to pursue that? I think that should be the first one answered, because I think there's a lot of maybe unintended consequences that could come from that.
I think, like Frank said, it's the beginning of the process, and we're not, well, Frank said he's not dictating the outcome, but we can't, I don't think that we can answer that question without a review, possibly with Sophia, and starting discussions of the job description. and how to fill the position of town administrator and what that position's going to look like. So I think it would be premature to answer that question at this time.
Can I speak?
Yeah, Don?
Thank you. Just briefly, Frank, thanks for your kind thoughts. My apologies again for interrupting the last meeting, but thank you. Sorry about that. I just want, this is a question of clarification, that's all. As I understand the discussion this morning, what
He
you
doesn't have the
decided
camera
to do is to rework the job description and to rediscuss the contract, to come up with a new contract, and that there will be no posting of the position unless those prior to acts don't work out. Is that correct?
I don't think that's accurate, Don. I think, as I just answered Melissa's question, we're beginning the process, which we've agreed to start with reviewing the job description, reviewing the town administrator role, and I'm going to reach out to Sophia to discuss whether she advises keeping on schedule with the annual evaluations, which we just started townwide this year. And I think the contract negotiation comes last with whoever, is filling the position or positions.
Are you saying you
And
intend to post the position now?
like I said to Melissa, I think it's premature to answer that question when we don't even have, a job description that we've discussed. And Don, as you know, and you pointed out in your letter, there were considerations of going down other avenues. There were attempts to go down other avenues. The board that you sat on advertised for a part-time town administrator. And I'm not saying that we're going down that route, but we're gonna look at all the options. I think now is a good time to review all of the options and do what's best for the town.
I understand
If we're
that. I have
looking
no
at
problem with
what's in
that,
the best
Justin.
interest of the town is not necessarily the status quo.
Yeah, I know you think that, but are you going to hold up on posting until you've gone through the first two processes? That's my question.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
we don't even have a decision as to whether we would be posting.
Okay,
That's the essence of what's been said, that we have to go through the process in order without making decisions before we review pieces of that process. It's like can't make a decision before you collect your data, dude. Like, I'm not an advocate of draw your line, then apply your points. I think it's all about make the decisions in the correct order, so you're not prejudging what you're gonna do, which I
Very
don't
good.
think is a reasonable,
you.
that's how I think it's reasonable to proceed, and I think that's how we all feel, that we have to go through the process before we make a decision, not make a decision and then pretend we have a process.
Okay, so we will meet next Monday and tackle the job description or begin that process, because I think it's a really good process. And also, I will ask Sophia about the performance evaluation timeline. The next agenda items are town administrator items, the cybersecurity grant and the truck bid.
So cybersecurity.
Thank you.
I'll reach out to you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
With the grant, I didn't know if you wanted to just give Frank permission to work with me, for us to decide which piece of, equipment to apply for, so I can start getting quotes.
Yeah, and just give a little more background. I talked to Roger from the finance, and I did not write the email to Melissa. So he's agreed to meet with us. He was the IT of Needham, Massachusetts. So he and I had a discussion. He could give, we have the personal computers and all that, and then he has some ideas about what we say as far as switch gearing and kind of security stuff that we could write up, and then we could look at the, we could bids or go after that, but, I will reach out to him. He said he's available to come meet, so we just do it. Some of it can be done in email. So I think we can get something together and,
I'm completely in favor
Yeah.
of Frank
Me
taking point on that.
And like, meet with whoever you need to, and if we can write a grant to get some of the equipment, let's do that. I mean, no downside that I can see, the worst case scenario is we don't get the grant, we're no worse
But
off.
we can take
Pardon? No, I mean, there's no downside, is my point. I'm all for things without a downside.
All right,
We got way more than what we expected, 40,500 for truck.
that we're replacing.
really,
Wow, that's been a trend.
That's quite the bidding
Nice
war.
maintenance job.
Oh my gosh.
We were expecting like 10 or whatever.
Wow.
thank you, Jim.
So we-
Your good work keeping it in shape,
We
is why you got
got
that
a lot
now.
off with it.
I think, just to speak to that, and it might be hard to work into the capital plan, but since Eileen is here, maybe, since it is how things work, maybe we should work into the capital plan in some way that when we purchase a vehicle or another piece of equipment, we often get some percentage of the money back after the fact. It doesn't change, like in this instance, we're still taking out $160,000 in a loan. The 40,000 works its way back in kind of mysteriously, at least, not mysteriously, but without a designated purpose. It doesn't go directly against the 160.
Is there a reason it couldn't?
Well, we
Yeah.
might be able to vote at town meeting to say, the problem is we don't have a figure at town meeting when we vote on the 160,000, which was voted on not this May, but May of 2022.
Okay.
So I don't know that there is, and I don't know if there is, that it's worth it, but it's possible that in some way it would be benefit to say, to authorize the town to borrow 160,000 minus whatever amount of money is gotten back on the bid.
Trading value.
But the other problem there is we're always gonna get the truck delivered and have to sign the loan for it before we put out the old one to bid, usually. So
You can pay it down.
I was just gonna say, can't we
You
just
can
use
pay-
money to pay
You
down?
can pay the
This way,
principal
since it's
down.
gonna go to free cash, is just to use it as an additional payment in the following year.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Jim, you haven't gotten your other one, right? The one that we ordered.
Yes. Not on the road yet.
But you have another one coming in the capital next year, right?
We have
And it took what, 18 months to get this one?
just a little over a year from the time of
Okay.
order.
All right.
Eileen,
This,
Jim,
No, you
Jim, you
Go ahead,
keep
Jim,
going.
finish.
this just kind of solidifies the importance there, or reaffirms the importance of staying on the schedule. And turning these trucks over while they still have some value. I think a year, maybe 2 years more in the fleet, will depreciate that value so much more. The truck's, got about 7 years worth of use on it, maybe 8, before it went into, it's sort of our reserve, if you will, where we don't use it as much as we would when it's new, obviously. Just, like I said, it just kind of reaffirms that, that it's important to keep that, especially on smaller trucks, that rotation, on the schedule that they're on for 7, 8 years of age. It's time to send them while they still have a little bit of value.
Right.
The truck is still very dependable for us to have, considering its age.
But you put a lot of money in it.
That one, I think I'd have to look at the numbers, but probably 14, 15,000 in 2 years that we put into it to keep it where it's at. Let's say it's 20, if we paid 80 for the truck and put 20 worth of maintenance into it the last couple of years, we're 100,000 deep. So the truck really only costs us $60,000.
Right.
So
Pretty simple math.
I think we have to formally accept the bid, so I'd move that we accept the bid of 40,500 for the highest bidder on municipal bid, if I'm not mistaken.
Second,
I vote yes.
yes,
And I'll vote yes, so that's unanimously accepted.
Thank you, Jim.
awesome, thanks, guys.
Thank
Anything
you.
else for that?
Thank you for doing the ball field.
Well, the ball field and the playground.
Yeah,
Yeah, everything.
So the demo work on the ball field went pretty well, or on the playground went pretty well. We, sent the scrap steel, we separated that, sent it down to the local scrap yard. Plastic went into the, rigid plastic recycling, and, obviously we have a dumpster for everything else that was left. Ball field, we got slowed up a little bit by the weather, things are pretty soft out there. Good day,
I don't know what you mean, my yard isn't wet.
obviously heavy weight and the trucks are really
Right.
made a mess on their access road and others, so. Things are going back in today, we have a little beaver issue to take care of this morning, so we're a little bit behind getting started. And we'll just start working our way back out, and
And Jim, you're overseeing the guy painting the building?
yes.
And how's that going? I saw him power
Well,
wash.
going well, we got, he's actually working on 2 projects for us. Right now, he's doing some work at the community center, which, turns out it was a good time to get some paint on there.
Yeah.
A lot of the trim that's there now is what they call finger jointed pine.
Yeah.
It comes pre-primed, it never had a coat of paint on it, it was only the primer.
Yeah.
So as soon as you hit it with a power washer, you can break
Yeah,
it.
bro, I know that feeling.
This out here is a little bit of water damage from the gutters and from that valley, but it's peeled off pretty nice, and we get a couple coats of oil-based primer on there.
Yeah.
Good for another 10
Appreciate
years.
it. Okay.
Do you have, that all sounds good. With the money that we had put towards town hall, I think it was like 49,000.
Yes.
How, we had talked about painting.
Right.
Are there other, like, just updates on like what else? I hope,
No more than that, Melissa and I have been working on prioritizing our list for what we're gonna do next.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a lot more projects to be done than we had money there.
yeah,
So we're gonna work on that in a couple of weeks. A plan for it.
thank you.
Looking at this floor in here, just more and more.
With all the weight on it.
I'm more and more of a fan of that. And while we're here, milling pavement started on River Road and Lovers Lane today. We did build up some pavement, or some gravel rather, on the gravel section. And they'll be moving up to finish milling the rest of Gould Road, the rest of today and tomorrow. We're stockpiling the millings at the highway garage, and we're gonna resurface the transfer station, the lower service area of the transfer station, without the access roads. And I'd like to put a top layer on Gould Road, just, or on Lovers Lane, just to stabilize that. And all that is a ground up asphalt, so we can lay that in and roll it in, and it should give us a pretty solid base for our detour.
Okay. Thanks for that.
You got me thinking about this stuff. Oh, so we met with, Courtney,
Yes.
about this culvert, and she mentioned that there's the possibility they wanna do a detour. I think you've discussed it with her many times probably,
We have.
or at least once, but, I'm hoping, I was going through the minutes from last week, and I'm really hoping that we can emphasize to them, if you agree, that there's really no way to have a sustained months-long detour over Fairview Road with all the 23 traffic.
I totally agree with that. I think that Mass Highway will agree with that as well. Especially when you start to get into some state funding, we learned that with Curtis Road, they've got to still do a review of Gould Road and our plan for the detour and approve that. And that is all attached to them putting the bill on the job. I think we'll find a lot of that's true out here as well. But a detour to close 23 is gonna be, that would be really tricky. My biggest concern, Sean's biggest concern, Brian's biggest concern is, what do we do for the residents on that side of the bridge for fire protection?
Yeah.
Police protection with EMS,
You,
okay?
Well,
I was
particularly
concerned,
ambulance.
I was really concerned, because I had the impression from Courtney that she was getting pushback from the state that there was no way to do it without a detour. And I was like, that's bad.
If one of the reasons that we're doing it is that in a severe 100-year weather event, the road floods over there and we can't reach emergency services to that side of town.
Intentionally
Yeah.
shutting it off.
It seems like counterproductive, and not that I don't think it's a good project, but I think it's almost, with the proposed detour, it's almost at the point where we need to question if they insist on doing the detour, whether we should do it. But I hope that they can do it, and I feel like they should be able to, well, I don't know, but you see a lot of bridges, they do one lane at a time. Right. I don't know why they couldn't. She said it's gonna be an 8-foot precast sections.
Correct. So we still need to work out some logistics on that part of it. I don't see a viable detour route. Weldon Road's out, Gould Road's out, just because of the narrow gravel roads. Fairview is no different with the grade changes that happened on there. That road just won't hold up the truck traffic.
If we were talking about not weeks or months, but days, right? If they needed to close the road completely to come with the precast sections and drop them in place, would that be doable?
Well, again, we're gonna have to look at all those
I
options.
know, I'm just trying to get a handle on
I
what
I don't like the idea of having the road closed
Right.
for any length of time,
right.
because that's the day that you're gonna have an emergency.
But you know it, right?
You can't.
Well, one other thing, I'm just thinking, if we needed to, put Otis on notice.
I believe they would be,
Yeah, like the ambulance and our fire maybe, but,
But you can't do that for.
yeah. It's still,
No, you can do it for a day or 2 days, but you can't do it for weeks.
yeah.
it's still a 15-minute ride on a good day. With the apparatus, we go over this all the time, it's a long ride over there.
Yeah.
When there's equipment right there, that'd be, I feel that would be helpful, I can only do yourselves.
One last thing, I think if there's millings on Lover Lane, are people going to think that it's been paved?
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
It's, all that is ground up asphalt.
Yes. Can you, I believe the lower area where the dumpsters are is millings, and is even the top area millings as
It is,
well?
yeah.
Can we then put gravel on the millings?
You could, but it doesn't, to me, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense because it's gonna blow off or wash off.
Yeah.
It's gonna set up firmer than the ground.
One thing that we're trying to do, and it directly contradicts with what some of our other priorities are, like keeping the roads open and safe and not muddy. But one of the things we're trying to do is maintain the rural character of the town.
Right. I respect that.
Yeah, and
I live on a gravel road.
yeah, so I'm leery of putting millings on Lover's Lane and losing that rural character of it, even if it costs more money to maintain it.
Right.
It's a short stretch of road, but it's like an iconic one.
Right.
It's one of those weird trade-offs though, cause I live on a gravel road off 2 gravel roads, right? So I
Yeah.
totally get the gravel road thing. I will say that, what we call Mount Griswold, that's on the Hoopi end, when weather is bad,
Yeah.
I actually take Art School Road, and I take Art School Road because there's some paving on the hill. And the
Right.
chances of getting up the hill are a lot better.
Mhm.
So I'm just putting out there that given the site that we're talking about, I agree with you, in principle, the rural character and everything, but it's also possible that from a functional standpoint, having a road that has the millings on it and can stand up to weather and traffic better, particularly if we're gonna be using it for any length of time with heavy traffic and trucks.
Mhm.
Do we want things getting bogged on the
No.
only road. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, having lived in that situation as long for 20 years and knowing both the routes, when it's wet, when it's spring, when it's icy, I take Upi, and it's not an accident.
We could put the millings out and then take them back up after the detour's over with.
And I don't wanna make extra work, and I completely understand where you're coming from.
I think that.
And I think personally, I might even just agree with the millings more.
Right,
I'm just cautious of,
I respect that, but like I said, we could put them out and, for the detour and then, take them back up fairly easily.
Yeah.
If that was, something that was more desired.
Mickey?
I think that's a very good idea. Put them down, because it's gonna help with that detour. But keep in mind that we can remove it when it's done, if we really want to do it.
And it does stay somewhat loose, so that we do still have that. You have the more rural character of it than say the chip seal that's on Art School Road. I remember Art School Road when it was gravel all the way to Tierney Road, and, at some point, somebody felt that was enough of that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not opposed to that kind of compromise of putting down the millings, and then if we need to take them up after the detour, we'll do that.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank
For
you.
providing options.
All good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Good job.
Did you have anything else, Evan?
Oh, I had one thought. No, I'll save it.
Okay.
For, not right now. Okay, here's the,
You want to,
so, this is pretty simple, which is that's town meeting warrant article that was approved by
You have
the.
one? I put them in here.
Oh,
yeah, you have what Peter wrote, and you have what Beth.
Yeah, I had some.
Well, no, I
Well,
think
there's three different
she
ones.
approved the Peter one.
She
That's
approved.
just Peter's.
Okay.
She done it,
Yeah, Donna.
just check.
So then, here's the real question. As housekeeping as we think that is, do we feel comfortable putting on the warrant with the school merger?
I think, yes.
I think so.
I think it's simple. I think, people, he had good turnout of solar renewable. I think people will vote for it. It makes sense. It's, it's in nobody's backyard,
But
It's right.
you never, there's two things. One is you just never know, and I highly doubt that this will be controversial, but you never know.
Right.
And then the other thing is, there is something nice about having a clean warrant with just the school merger on it. And if the timing works out, I'm hoping that the bylaw review committee will have their non-controversial proposal.
Define.
Controversial.
One minute you're not optimistic about the solar, and then you say the bylaw is non-controversial. You got it confused.
No, I'm hoping that they will be ready this winter and that we're gonna have to do something for that. And we're really not, as much as we wanna move along in a timely manner on the solar, we're not in the crunch, like in a time crunch. Donna, when I sent her that, asked, should you want me to review the lease as well? I'm like, no, we're very far away from that.
No, but I think it's a checkoff list to achieve it. I don't think it's a controversial, my personal opinion, it's not a controversial one. And if we can get it done, you get it off. and you get
Warrant
it done.
article. I'm not sure about the school thing is.
The school
going to be
thing is, oh my God.
I mean,
You know,
I agree with you of it being a nice, clean slate. At the same time, I think the sooner we can get check off, if it did fail, the worst case scenario is it gets bumped down the road and we address it again.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're gonna be less exhausted after the budget discussion. Or are you talking about a second STM?
I'm assuming,
A second.
based on the bylaw review committee's work, that they will be ready and that we don't wanna combine it with annual town meeting. Because it's
Yeah.
gonna be long and it's too much, and maybe that happens next spring, maybe it happens over the winter. But when the bearing a voter from Great Barrington raised a concern to the Great Barrington Select Board. Are they going to have other articles with the school merger? And I think Steve Bannon said something like, oh, maybe housekeeping. The problem is, what seems to us like housekeeping,
Yeah.
just, there's still questions about it. And if it's just housekeeping, can we just do it with the bylaws and at some point in winter? But maybe we don't need to discuss that all today.
I totally see your point, and I, in a way, because I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen with the school thing, but I do think it'll be a pretty in-depth discussion.
I'm more worried, how does that discussion, who leads that discussion
What do you mean?
on the school board? You know, in some of the references they made last week, they said it's on the website.
Mhm.
When you go on the website, you know, that's a fishing expedition that can last hours.
And a lot of people just won't.
You know, and they're not gonna do that, and, you know, I'm not the expert on it, and, you know, I've never had children in the school system or anything like that. But I know we have, you know, we have Don, I think Kim and John that are some way, but how's that discussion go? I mean, because I walked away last Monday night with more questions than answers.
Well, I think once it hits town meeting, it's gonna be like any town meeting where any voter can speak. And I assume that we'll also let the Lucy and Jake speak.
Yeah, but if they want all the votes on one day,
That
all
would-
towns,
how
they
could
can
that
only
possibly
be,
Oh,
they
well, one
can
thing-
only be in one place at a time.
One thought is, they wanted to call it on a Monday, but we have been holding meetings on Saturdays. So we could hold our meeting on Saturday.
Could we hold it on Saturday and not release the vote until, I guess we do it in public, so.
It would be public, but it's just a thought. I think there's advantages and disadvantages to it.
I think it's better on a Saturday night, we need to, I think it gives people, you know.
Eileen,
I know this isn't the agenda item, but, you know, Roger and I were at the same briefing, and we have a lot of the same feelings about, even though we have Don and Kim and someone else.
John.
John Silver.
You know, so like, are we gonna have a briefing from them? Do they have opinions? You know, I just happened to sit with Egremont and Sandersfield, and they were very amusing, you know, saying that we really need to look at the formulas, not, I don't know how to say this, what Justin just said about it's a priority to retain like the rural nature of this, you know, our town, but at the same time, we understand that we need progress, so we're trying to balance the two. I think that's the exact same situation with the school board. We wanna be fiscally responsible, we wanna do the right thing, but we wanna retain what works for people in the small town, you know, so that's gonna be the debate, really, money over way of life. It really is.
Eileen,
Yeah.
they're coming, in
Right,
terms
on
of,
the
are we
12th.
getting a briefing?
On
They're
the
coming,
12th.
as far as the select board goes, they're coming next Tuesday at 6:30. If you wanna do something as far as the finance committee goes separately,
Well, my question is this.
do you need,
I have-
I can get you their
Let me
email.
ask my question. I think they're gonna do the same exact thing they did in that 8 board meeting. So is there a way to get a little more of a technical briefing? We've asked them, I've
Yeah,
called.
ask them, I mean, do
I
you want me
did.
to reach out on your behalf?
Yes.
Yeah, I can.
Because
I will send you a list of questions I have.
I was just gonna say,
Because
I
that's
actually-
all, I'm sorry, I went on and on,
we need
but
to be clear with them about
Yes.
some substantive questions beforehand,
Yes.
so they come
Thank you.
prepared with answers. Because when you dump a technical question on them, often they're gonna punt it. But if you give them the question beforehand and be like, these are our 5 most pressing
yes, that's what
questions,
I'm trying to
we
say,
need
sorry. I went on.
substantive answers, we don't wanna be told, go to the website.
Right, correct.
So, question, do you both have Lucy and Jake's emails?
I might, I
I
If
definitely
you
have.
don't, just let me know.
I'll let you know.
Tell them, email them, I'm a select board member in Monterey. You're coming to the meeting Tuesday night, I'm sending you these questions in advance. I'll also,
I come after I get done.
I'll also
I'll
forward,
add to you, Frank.
I'm also gonna
Show me
forward
the math.
Jake's
Well, that's
email.
why I'm asking for a technical briefing.
Sorry.
Exactly.
I'm gonna forward Jake's email, which I couldn't tell if he sent it to you all, cause he BCC'd everyone. Where he followed up on some of the questions that they couldn't answer that night.
Just send us that.
Yeah, I thought that might have been the case, but I couldn't tell.
And can you let Roger, can you send that to the finance committee
Yeah.
also? Because Roger and I were there?
Roger has an interesting perspective because, he worked in a small
Very,
town
that's what I'm
about
saying.
schools,
That's,
Yeah, he has some really he's watched it happen.
yeah,
3 times, he said.
Wow, three
Yeah.
times.
About mergers, about building new schools,
Yes.
questions you answered before, questions you don't, the whole thing, people want details.
that's why I
How
questioned,
are you gonna keep it financially
So-
on track?
I will reach out on Eileen. Can you just forward me anything did you email Jake and Lucy?
well, I emailed I went through the site and I.
Just email Jake and Lucy. Or
Well, I don't have their email, so
send me
I'll send you my email,
an
you
email.
forward it.
and I'll forward them. And then I think Susan and Frank, if you wanna ask questions in advance of our meeting next week.
I do, because I'm not sure what to tell people.
That being said, we're talking about special town meeting items, so
Am I allowed to copy you guys on my questions?
just ask them and then bring them to the meeting.
If the worst case scenario is several of us would ask the same question, that just shows them that there's consistency on the board members, and they know we can't talk to each other, so.
We will, the warrant article the wording's been approved, we're not sure if we're gonna add it to the special town meeting warrant at this time, we can always figure that out when we do warrant. The next thing is the compensation for conservation commissioners. So the gist of it is that Noel suggests she does about 11 to 12 hours a month. And then Kevin said he averages 11 hours per month, but some months are almost twice that, some are half.
I could not find, I spent probably an hour trying to find out if commissioners are compensated, even with a stipend. I could not find anything that indicates that they are.
Did you?
In other towns.
In what? In other towns.
Well, yeah, but I wonder if the Massachusetts municipality, that association, would they have?
They had stuff posted, but it just talks about it being volunteer. Everybody just talks about being volunteer. I didn't see a stipend. Okay.
What's the age of our commissioners, because we could use the tax write-off though, the senior tax write-off.
We actually can't for meetings. It has to be for something that is separate, like
Okay,
maybe.
so we can't.
That would be great, because I couldn't find anything that said anything other than volunteer. Which, nothing said you couldn't, but everything just says that they're volunteers that, and then it goes on. The paid position is the agent.
Yeah, my sense is that other towns don't, from looking at their town meeting warrants. That being said.
That doesn't necessarily prevent us from doing it,
Yeah.
but I wanted to know if anybody else was doing it.
But I don't know a lot about this, but sometimes we have a professional company working, right? Sometimes.
An agent.
An agent?
Yeah, and for a long time, we were paying the agent, or not a long time, but for a few years, paying the agent out of a revolving fund, which was probably not entirely legal. And now we created a line item to pay the agent out of the operating budget.
It also wasn't, we weren't plugging on fees to actually.
Yeah, it was unsustainable and not entirely legal.
Right.
Only because it's not like some crazy thing, but the revolving fund is supposed to specifically be for like the mailings or advertising.
Administrative.
So anyways, I don't know if we have a number that we were thinking.
I was
Or
doing that
couple
in
of
part to see if anybody else did it, in part to see if they did, what
Yeah.
they were offering. Because it's one of those things where there are people who'd say, well, give them $100 for the year, that it shows you
No,
recognize
I
their
would-
work, and I'd be like, I think
I think
that's
that's kind
actually
of
insulting,
disrespectful.
right, yeah.
I was thinking in the neighborhood of 600 to 1,200 per year. Again, it's not paying them an hourly rate, but it's alleviating or defraying some of the costs they're incurring. And I know they can reimburse for mileage, but they spend quite a bit of time. And I think 600 to 1,200 makes sense. If you look at Board of Health, Select Board, Board of Assessors are the officials or volunteers that are currently paid. And the Concom was kind of hard to place within those, in part because they have 7 members. Assessors have 3, health has 3, select board has 3. So I was gonna err on a higher side, like 1,200 plus, but once you divide, times that by 7 members, that's quite a bit. So I was thinking 600, 1,200, 50 or $100 a month, just to defray some of the costs of being on the commission.
When was the last time we actually had 7 members? Just throwing it out
I
there.
think we were, during my time, 5 was the max.
Yeah, but it is, I think it's 7, I think it's 7.
Should we change that?
They're just unfilled positions. By the way, that was really common when I was looking at boards in other towns, at vacant positions. I would say was the rule rather than the exception.
It's hard to get people to volunteer.
Even in cities and stuff.
It's everywhere.
I hit up everybody that has a pulse that comes in here, but I'm not.
It's a false.
Well, the playground will be open soon.
Yeah, that could be like a high school volunteering.
Well, maybe we should set up a program with the school and give credits for them.
Little
Take it
couple
out of
on that.
school.
Fire company lease.
Fire company lease.
There's no change, and I haven't reached out to Sean, Melissa and I, she forwarded the letter to him and sort of stated our position, and I'm ready to talk, but he wants to, so.
Okay.
It's pretty, no change between the last 2 weeks.
Got follow-up document, so the computer, I'm just gonna go through them. The computer policy is with Don.
Right.
I haven't heard back yet. The payroll policy, I'm hoping to have a sense on some things after talking with Berkshire County Retirement next week.
Okay.
The employee handbook and the boards and commission, I have to.
Your employee manual, I just started reading that.
Yeah.
Okay, in my opinion, it's not critical, we still got a lot of work. There's some things that stayed in there wouldn't match with the job description, like HR manager of the organizational chart shows.
Yeah.
There's little cleanup things, it's not like, I need.
They're not major edits.
If there's not major edits, some of the stuff, I don't know if I have it back here. But anyway, I will go through and promise that I'll get it done in the next week.
Okay.
I just like to
I
see,
started
us,
writing it.
especially with that, the employment one, the employee manual, I feel like that should be a priority.
I
Cause we
think
wanna
it-
have it finalized prior to all the rest of the.
You want
Yeah, and we've been working on a lot.
contracts to match the manual,
Yep.
not that there would be a lot of overlap, you want it to match the organization.
Sure, exactly.
So, the rule is if we were get it by bus, someone could come in and read it.
But also, it's good to be consistent, and that's part of the whole purpose of the edit,
It's
so,
it's
yeah,
always evolving.
okay. I
One,
think that was, it was 4, so that's all.
one overarching question is policies being in the employee manual or not. Like the computer use policy. And I think if we're gonna have standalone policies that are expectations of employees that aren't in the employee manual, then we should have a clear list, maybe even in the employee manual.
I was just gonna say, is there any reason, I guess we should consult also with me about this, but my preference if I was the employee would be to have all the additional standalone policies as addenda, or just like,
In the document.
yeah,
And I think,
even if they're,
Well-
there's a list of additional documents that in the index and they're all appended to it, so they're all there.
Yeah, it increases the size, but you sort of want one-stop shopping.
It's a reference manual, it's
No.
not meant, you're not meant to
You
sit
want
down and read it
one-stop,
cover to cover.
I looked in the manual, I didn't see anything about computers, well, that's in a different policy, so it's gonna add to it, I forget, it's like 47, 37 pages, whatever, but it's gonna add to it. But I think for employees, particularly if you hire someone new, here's, take it home. We used to do that, and believe me, they would mark it up and but that's fine, you want them to have that information.
so, quick question, I think that we had already tried to incorporate most of the standalone policies. I think there's maybe only some questionable ones where you kind of wonder, is that, like, we have an agenda posting policy, that doesn't need to be in the employee manual. I think
That
Probably
probably
you have,
does
like,
need
I
to
mean,
be
you
in
have-
the boards and commissions manual.
and minutes posting policy.
There's a lot of policies, because I mean, you get back there, I didn't know, but there's a vehicle policy. It's in the manual. At least the copy I got.
Yeah. So,
So if you can send me your edits, Sophia and I will work on incorporating them all.
yeah,
Since I've heard your comments
Yeah.
Well,
about that.
I will send my edits. Yeah, that's just something I need to do. That's just on me. But I just brought that up. Cause as we went over the computer use policy in particular, I wondered,
Where does it belong?
should it be in the employee manual?
It's a good thing to consider where all that, does, as an employee, I would, even if I wasn't gonna read it cover to cover, I'd like to have all the policies relevant to my job on there, listed in the index, so if I had a question, I can be like, okay, IT policy, page whatever.
I never read it, but I could now.
Yeah, if I need it or something comes up, I know where to look for it, it's right in there, I just have to find it.
Unanticipated business.
Ain't got me.
Just I potentially adjourn the special town meeting, there will be possibly 2 additional items for a special town meeting. Police department would like to create a revolving fund for the signs.
Yeah.
And, there's some talk about maybe looking for additional officers. So we can minimize the staffing.
Yeah.
What was the last one? I couldn't hear.
Possible another officer.
And Brian, we discussed this a little bit when I was in the office. Could you please get from Brian kind of a report? Okay, because we've been doing the 2 full-time officers, I guess just since what, was it this January?
Yeah, that's January.
How's it been going?
Can he just come one evening and talk to us?
Yeah.
Because I'm not caught up with.
But I think, yeah, I'm not opposed to having him come and talk, but I think sometimes it's nice to have it, like an overview in writing, like, how's it been going? What is the proposal?
And why you
Including-
need it, right?
Including money, including a schedule, maybe a month or 2 of schedule. I'm a little bit concerned about the overnight staffing, being divided amongst,
We have another possible.
okay.
That's why we wanted to.
Well, I was just giving you a heads up
Yeah,
that we may have that on there, Brian and I are still working on it.
But to have, I think it probably to have some of that in writing prior to the meeting might answer some of the questions, and then we can ask questions on that instead of figuring it out during the meeting, if we do schedule them in.
Anything else?
Comments and questions from the public?
Thank you for considering a strategy for the school plan. I think that's very good.
What's that strategy?
The one where we're gonna ask questions.
Yeah.
What was that?
What was it?
Well, the one where you're gonna email me, and I'm gonna email.
Right, and Frank has, no, I think that's very important because, and I think we should engage those 3 people. Maybe make sure, you know.
The only thing that gave me any sense of reassurance was the fact that even if the vote was to join the 8-town thing, when we really have a plan with an actual number, we could pull out again, because
Yes, I
my
agree.
biggest, on top of all the other concerns, I do not buy their cost estimate for building the building. I just think it's off by a large margin, I'm not talking 5%.
Yeah.
Because I think they're using a very outdated figure and not upticking it for changes in building costs or the addition of all the VOTEC stuff they wanna do, so I think it's way off, and I think
I
that's
think
gonna
the percentage will
change.
be greater on us than they're
This is-
telling us.
Even if the percentage may or may not, but even if it isn't, if
What's
instead of
1%,
110
but
million,
if
it's 180 million,
It's 1% of whatever carried over, and then the interest rate he gave was very low at 3.25.
right, which is kind of, it's certainly
Not gonna
not
happen.
currently applicable. not even for a job that
It's hard
size.
to predict, and the whole transportation thing, I just
Yeah.
shake my head on that.
Thank you. Yeah, just use GPS to do your routing, that'll totally work.
I will tell when she stood up and everything.
Oh my gosh.
So they did, and they did answer some of those questions. Oh, I gotta send that to, did you get that email from Jake? Because I don't know why he did it, but he BCC'd me.
God forbid people talk to each other. That's
You can't tell
Who
who
else
got it,
it? Right.
you know? Kind of a weird, cause the normal practice for that group has been,
Kinda
you
everybody.
could see who got it.
I think, and I'm wondering if he just sent it to the select board chairs or something.
Well, maybe, or, well, that's because it was specifically a select board meeting, yeah.
Follow up with the attachment.
But you all know
Yeah.
who each other are, so that's
Do you want me to
silly.
do some?
Yeah, can you send it
That's what I'm
to
trying to say.
Susan, Frank, and
Right.
just the whole finance committee too, please? The website. Where was it? Follow up, yeah, E-Town.
On September 3rd.
Minutes.
Fine, thank you for a wonderful meeting.
Thanks for
I
commenting.
have a public comment, not for.
They did comments already.
We did.
No.
We're on-
Very nicely, no, very
Maggie's
nice,
leaving.
very nicely
Maggie's outta
handled.
here.
No, very nicely handled. I think you worked as a very nice team.
So I've got 22 and 29, but 21 is also.
Yeah, so I don't know, and that's why I was a little bit hesitant to post the meeting. What are we gonna do?
Just use a copy of theirs, right?
I don't think they need them. I think what we should do is find out if another town made them. It's
God help
ridiculous,
us,
3
we'll
hours a
find
meeting.
those minutes.
Well, 3 hour meeting, and I said one thing and Susan said one thing. Do we need to single out those points? You know what I mean? Because the whole point of posting a meeting is what if the select board deliberates on, and then the other thing I was thinking is, it's not even really in a matter that we have say on.
Right.
We're not on the RSDPB. Once they give us the plan, you know, these are just kind of asides, but once they give us the plan, we just have to propose at town meeting. We don't have a say, other than on the timing of calling that special town meeting. It's almost really silly, but I was thinking, we posted an agenda, we have to do something for the minutes. That's why ahead of the meeting, I was thinking, almost we need to go and, I didn't know it was gonna be 3 hours, but almost we need to go, not post a meeting and not say anything. Cause if we have to do minutes for 3 hours of meeting, that's
I
ridiculous.
did hear something about that.
I don't know.
Don, did you have something to say?
I think it's just about, something about.
I think the light was.
Yeah, you lit up green, but maybe we're just
I'm-
talking out.
I'm very curious to know what other towns are doing.
I can also find out from the open meeting law, maybe because you attended, you can just make it pretty brief that, you
We
attended the
attended the
meeting, you can check they have a recording of it
They
or
do.
whatever.
Don, you had your hand up?
No, thank you. It was just, I was a mistake.
Okay.
Alright.
Yeah, there's a video of it, but the thing, we posted the agenda. We got a 3 hour meeting, where we said 2 things.
And maybe we should just, I guess we had to
You
post.
know what the
agendas all
two
three
things
of
you
us
said, I don't
there.
remember.
I asked what they're gonna do with Mount Everett
That's right.
when it's
That's-
semi-abandoned, or underutilized. And you said, why does Southern Berkshire pay quite a bit less per pupil for
That's right.
operational
The
budget?
response was that it's a lower salary.
Yeah, I don't think that's the full explanation.
I know, but
They're
that's
not
what
that
they
much
said.
lower.
That's what they said.
They're not that much lower
Yeah, no.
to be that crazy percent change. I don't know.
And that's operating
Because
budget.
you could add Tara from what New Marlboro talked about that, because she did some of the budget.
Do we have 22? Do you have 22?
I have 22, we should have 21, one of them is one page.
Yeah,
Did I
this
give-
is the one thing,
That's
it might have been,
the 29.
mine was in front of this, cause mine, that was first for me, 22 was before 21.
Promise.
They should
Too
have been
many
both on the
doc-
very bottom.
Yeah, well, the problem is I actually have paper copies of my own documents today.
Oh my God, paper copies?
So, you know, anyway, I think I made my minutes to 8:22.
I'm good with them both.
Oh, here we are. Yeah, too much paper.
So, did you find it?
Two things.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
okay.
Tariko just corrected twice. Well, actually, you know what, Tariko wasn't in there, but we both, or two people added it because there's too many Dons. No, Tariko, I don't know what's going on. And then,
I think with the two fire company lease renewal, I do want to check to see if Frank is okay with that. I was just trying to clean that first paragraph up. Cause I thought it was a little confusing and vague, but I want, since I reworded what Frank is purported to have said, I wanna make sure he's okay with what I said.
Yeah, because I did.
They do not, I have mine, Justin's and yours, but not Frank's.
Go to the other one. and
Okay.
see if I
so we'll
can-
do 8:22.
What other one?
Go to the other set and let me see if I can.
You mean the eight twenty-nine?
Combine.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't have any of his on the 29th either, not today, I mean, they're so short, so.
You only sent for one of them.
The only thing that I would change is I added this about the pedestrian lane and water line.
Okay, we were
Well,
both trying to
so
accomplish the
yours-
same thing, I think.
We'll get rid of the orange and go with the blue, I think, and then. but I'll keep
The
an
second
other
paragraph,
one.
but keep your first paragraph, I like it. Okay. Yeah, and I like what you put in last paragraph.
Okay, motion to approve the 8:29 minutes as amended.
One second, you good with that, Pat?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Any discussion, vote yes,
Yes.
Yes.
then approved unanimously.
Everything else is paid.
Okay, thanks, Melissa, don't know why I didn't. I still, Word is so weird. It's now, every time I turn on, put on track changes, and half the time it gives me the column on the right.
Yeah.
And the other half of the time, it puts it in the left
Yeah.
and it's slightly different format,
Yeah.
it's super annoying, and no one has been able to show me how to change.
Where, do you have your pen?
Yeah.
Cause I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
You do? I would be
It's not
so
showing the
happy.
color.
Well, I can,
Here, let's finish this and then you can show me, because it's driving me nuts that I can't figure out how to get it back.
He had pretty much rewritten that, I think.
Which is fine, I'm just trying to figure out. Okay, I'm okay with how Frank did it.
I mean, I can, that's basically.
Yeah, no, we were,
I-
often we're headed to the same thing,
I-
it's just the specifics, but I'm fine with how you worded it.
The one question I probably didn't talk last week, but on that, the fire company, Chris said that we could do amendments in the middle of the lease, saying if the town wanted to say, increase the rent this much, stipulating this will be done, we can do an amendment to the lease. Because if we do a 5-year lease and say, year 3, I gotta fix something, we can say, here's the fund.
Addenda, right, yeah.
So he said it can be done that way.
It's not
So
like
it's not
whatever we
like-
put in place has to be no
Yeah,
change
you
for
can-
Mike.
And we can do like a letter, I used to do letter of agreements, if this should come up, this is the practice that will be done,
That works.
so.
So we'll just use Frank's version on section 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7, just the Chirico is the double correction. And then Justice said he is aware of a citizen who may be a possible candidate for the position.
Any updates on that?
Yeah, he's gonna do it.
Yay, that's great.
What days did the evenings does he work?
Tuesday and Thursday, I believe. But he was recently, there was a day that he took off, I saw it on the calendar.
So in mid-7, that ends up weird with both of these?
Yeah.
Just should possible candidate for the positions we just ended?
Yeah, I think that makes
Okay,
sense.
that makes sense.
We'll just end that sentence there. Possible candidate for the position.
He being Don Rico's gonna do it?
Bob Carlson said he would do it.
Okay. So 9B,
To us, oh, sorry.
did you already deal with it below somehow?
Um.
Cause I just thought that was really
Town
vague.
acceptances of Mass General law, as Justin said it might be,
Asked if the select board could add things that may need to be done.
to a special town meeting warrant.
Okay.
Right, does
What
that
does that
work?
sentence actually say though?
I think what I was asking is, should we add items to the special town meeting warrant?
Okay. But that was discuss possible town meeting issues, but this is specific to the bylaw review committee.
I was asking if we wanted to add anything on the school,
Ah,
on the
okay,
school warrant,
alright,
which we're still apparently not entirely sure whether we should. I think the more I thought about what that, and you had said it previously, but when the Barrington brought it up, I was figuring, if we're gonna try to keep it just housekeeping, maybe we just don't even deal with the housekeeping. And then assume
we'll have a house.
a housekeeping meeting, if there's enough housekeeping items. Because if there's 2 housekeeping items, or 3 or 4, then it warrants almost its own meeting.
Yeah, but
And I
it's
don't-
not, yeah, but some of it, it's like the renewable energy one, it's not complex.
I know, but remember, you never know. You never know.
You
Like
haven't
what?
lived,
It's
you
just
haven't
my-
lived through
me
enough
being-
town
me
meetings.
being naive, you know.
Yeah, you haven't
Well,
lived through
I'm
enough
just-
town meetings that unexpected things will
Serve
become
them sugar,
issues. Pardon?
serve them sugar.
Well, I'm also just saying,
They'll just talk faster.
it's just clean, there's gonna be enough really good discussion points and questions about the school merger that we don't need to muddy up the water with
Other considerations.
other considerations that can wait a month or 2.
I think it,
And like
in a
that-
lot of ways, it's really clean. The downside is we have to go through the whole warrant thing and call people together, and a lot of times when you have too many special town meetings, you don't necessarily get the same turnout. I think we're gonna have probably a big turnout for the school.
It's
I
possible.
hope we do,
I hope we do too,
God, if I had a kid. it's-
I know. but, and it affects everyone, because even if you don't have a kid, you're still paying for it.
So
Well, it's only 3.25%.
The change that I had on this one was just on the first one, accepting Susan's comment. On number 2, using Frank's writing of it. On 7, just the Don Perico spelling, and then deleting the end of the first sentence of the second paragraph on 7. And then adding to a special town meeting on 9B, accepting Susan's comment on 9C. I know,
And there's a bunch of deletes, which is great, but shorter is better.
motion to approve the August 22nd
Second,
minutes as amended, vote,
yes.
and yes, so that's unanimous approval. I'm gonna get your initials on there. Yeah,
I'm sure you all understand their current job. Would you rather the end of this week or Monday? I'm fine with either one, I don't care. What works better?
I think Frank and Justin are probably more important to me on Friday, especially if you want to have Sophia's come in, she'll be here.
yeah. Friday noon, 11:30.
Frank, you're up.
What, yeah, what time, the September 8th?
Yeah.
What time do you wanna do it?
I know you're an early person, so you want
I know that,
to meet us first thing,
that'd be fine with me.
8:30 for you?
Did that work for you, Justin? 8:30?
No, we can't all meet.
No, we're not gonna meet together. We're gonna be individually.
Alright, sorry about that.
No worries.
It just sort of
So-
in my head.
Melissa,
And Friday, it's only if you want Sophia to be a part of it, if you don't, I can do tomorrow, or.
I'd like to have Sophia part of there, so, I didn't hear you when you first spoke, so.
I just said I wanted to meet with you guys before the meeting on Monday to make sure you understand my current position.
Okay, alright, that's fair enough.
And I wouldn't mind meeting sometime Friday morning too, just because I might have questions for Sophia.
Okay.
So
What
8:30
time?
for you, Frank?
No,
Yeah.
it's so different,
I know,
please.
I know those people are going. How long do you think you'll need?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's your meeting, so I, you know,
I feel at least 45 minutes.
okay, that's fine, I'll put it, yeah, that's fine, I mean.
Do you wanna do 9:30 or is that not enough, or do you need 10, 9:30? Okay.
Justin, you can do 11:30.
Yeah, but that works for you.
You're gonna have a morning. But a lot of times it may end up being repetitive because it may be
Maybe
the
if you
same
have
thing.
questions that you don't understand things right now, maybe you can send them to me beforehand so I can be ready.
Well, the other thing, Melissa, is just the job description we did, remember, I forget when exactly we went over it, but it was like a year ago? Or maybe a little bit less than a year ago? I guess one point would be if there's anything that you feel that you do for the town in any capacity while you're being paid by the town. So that needs to be added to clarify.
I guess how specific do you wanna be, because I've talked with Susan already, I think it already covers that, it's,
Okay.
I work with all the other boards and commissions as, I can't remember exactly what it
Yeah.
says.
Well, if you're comfortable with it and you feel that it's accurate, then that's fine.
Yeah, I
If you didn't feel that it was accurate, then.
This is the opportunity to change it. The one thing that I know that was an issue when we talked about it previously was, it actually still says in there that she supervises Asia.
Yeah.
Well, we never made the changes that we said we were gonna make,
Right.
because it was tied to the
Because it was
contract
tied
and
to
we
the
got
contract,
hung up
but that
on the
definitely
contract
needs to be
negotiations.
consistent with
Yeah,
the rest
and
of
they
the stuff.
need to clean it all up.
Yep.
No, no.
That was like, that one, I know for sure. I just wanna make sure that the other job descriptions are explicitly included in some way in there, if you're doing them. That's all.
That's fine, and I just wanna talk with you all, just so you're all prepared to come in about that the current position is a part-time town administrator position.
And it says full-time right on there. Did you notice that?
The job description,
Yeah, the
but
job
my
description
contract
says
says it is a part-time.
position is full-time. Is what it says, so there, yeah, the
But
contract says
that could be
part-time.
because it includes all my other duties.
It could be, but this says it's full-time town administrator, so that's another district. I'm not surprised there's differences. The point of this is to clean up the differences so we have consistency. Like this is like, that's the whole point. It's let's get it consistent throughout.
And just on your minutes, sorry, I have a question on that, why Ron's letter was being removed as an attachment?
Because I didn't get the letter till after the meeting was adjourned. And I've done it before, my opinion is that when people come to speak and they bring their own notes or their own speech, they're welcome to say it, but it doesn't necessarily become a document used at the meeting. If the board takes it up and discusses the document itself as a document, but if it's someone's own speech or own notes, then it's not, that's, like, they can use it to speak, they can hand it to a board member, but it's not necessarily a document used at the meeting. And in addition to that, I didn't even get it till after the meeting adjourned. So that's why
I actually want clarification for this week, because I think actually, I think the open meeting law does speak to that, and I was planning on putting all the letters that you got today as attachments, and then asking you for the statement that you read. But let me double check that.
Well, I remember because we've been over this once, right, over the years, and there is some discretion given to the board, because it says something along the lines of if it is used, physically present, discussed, there's some wording, but it is somewhat ambiguous, where there could be a discussion. There's some documents, like when we sign a contract, when we discuss we're gonna sign this contract with Southern Berkshire, we discuss it with Southern Berkshire, and then we sign it, and it becomes binding on the town, that absolutely is a document used at the meeting. But there's a gray area, and my personal opinion has been that if the board chooses to take up a letter written by Joe Smith who comes to the meeting and discuss it, then that's a document used in the meeting. If it's letters that are written to the board, they're not necessarily documents used at the meeting unless, and the board has some discretion. The board could go out of their way to add them to the meeting minutes when they're not really even used at the meeting, but I don't think that we're legally required to. So I think there's a gray area. Because we've had this discussion a number of times, right? And we've been over the
And
road.
any letter that gets sent to us in our official capacity is technically part of the record. It could be, someone could make a record request.
It's a public
So-
document, but it's not necessarily,
Yes, I was saying it's available if people ask for it, but it's different that it's a public document versus it's a document used at the meeting.
a
I was
document
trying
used
to-
at the meeting and that we post with the
Right.
minutes, and that makes it, that gives a lot of, there's some, okay, so it all goes back to the open meeting law requires that you list documents used at the meeting if they meet certain criteria. You legally have to include them in the same way that you legally have to post minutes. Our select board goes out of the way to meet those requirements and surpass them by posting them attached to the minutes online, which we don't need to do, we just they need to be available upon request. That being said, we always meet the legal criteria, and if anything, add more than we need to there, but we don't need to, and that's a decision for the board. I think in thinking about Don's letter, though, it by no means met the legal criteria for what needs to be listed as document used at the meeting. It wasn't physically present to the board members until after the meeting adjourned. It wasn't really discussed by the board members, it was like personal prepared speech.
And I don't think that the letters that we've had in the preceding week, really have to be on there either for the same reason. We didn't discuss individual letters, the conversation today was about process.
And we can pull up, Melissa, from our previous discussions, there's guidance from the open meeting law division. Motion to adjourn,
Second,
we'll vote on that.
see you on Monday.
Yes.
Yes. Unanimous. Meeting adjourned at 10:44 AM. Under 2 hours.